Alright, so we're going to do the special segments and points of concurrency assignment. And if I can get this to work, what we're going to do is number 1. Alright, so number 1, this is Gj. So you notice Gj is a parallel side to a segment, to a mid-segment. So PQ is the mid-segment, Gj is the parallel side, so PQ, Gj, right? So if we know what PQ is, we know PQ is 19, then we know that Gj is double that, okay? So one of the things we learned along the way is that a mid-segment is half of its parallel side. So that's 19, and each of these halves is 19. So we add 19 plus 19, and we get 38, right? So RQ, so for RQ, now RQ is not 55. 55 is a degree, so we're not looking at 55. But if we know that HG is 27, then we know RQ is half of that, right? Because again, a parallel side, the mid-segment is half of the parallel side. So for RQ, 27 divided by 2, and that gives us about 13.5. So each of these little one tick marks is 13.5. RJ, now we know what RJ is because GJ is 38. RJ is half of that. Anything with 3 tick marks on this has 19, so yeah, that's 19 as well. HP, from H to P, is the same thing as RQ, okay, each of those, 1 tick mark, right? So again, RQ was 13.5, HP is going to be 13.5 because that's half of the parallel side, right? Now, for these angles, again, 5 and 6 are angles. The only angle we're given is this, 55 degrees. QRJ is 55 degrees. So from QRJ and PQR, I want you to remember that these two angles right there, that is alternate interior angles. And if you remember, alternate interior are congruent because they're not the same side. So that's going to be 55 degrees. And then, way down here, so QRJ is 55 degrees, and then HGJ, way down here, that angle and the original angle, those are corresponding. And we remember corresponding are congruent, they're not the same sides, so that's another one that's 55 degrees. Okay? Alright, bringing it, nope, don't do that. Alright, bringing this down. Okay, number 7, what is the perimeter of triangle GHJ? So remember, for GHJ, that's the big triangle. So I already know GH is 12. Cool. Next thing I need to find out is HJ. So I know LJ is 4, so that means this is 4. So that means the whole thing is 8. And then, last but not least, GJ. If I know 7 is this mid-segment, I'll give it 3 tick marks, then I know each of these is going to be 7. And remember, the parallel side from a mid-segment is doubled, and it makes sense that this would be 14. So, to find number 7, we're going to add 12 plus 8 plus 14 for the big triangle, GHJ, the big triangle's perimeter. And that's going to give us 34 units. All right. But then number 8 says, what's the perimeter of triangle KML? Now that's on the inside. So from K to M to L. Okay. Now, ML, I know has to be half of the parallel side, which is 12. So remember, half of 12 is 6 and 6, which means this mid-segment is also 6. And it has one tick mark, like these other ones do. Over here, HJ was 8, so the mid-segment is half of that, and we know it's going to be 4. That's going to have 2 tick marks on it, just like these do. So now we can add up all those mid-segments. 4 plus 6 plus 7 equals 17. And you might notice that the mid-segment perimeter is half of the outside triangle's perimeter. Okay? So that's 7, and that's 8. Number 9, what is the relationship between the perimeter of triangle Ghj and the perimeter of triangle KLM? That's what we just said. It is half. So if you can find one of those perimeters, you can find the other one just by dividing by 2. Alright? Number 10. So we know mid-segment is half. So this mid-segment right here is half of this parallel side. So so the mid-segment times 2 equals the parallel side. So what I just wrote is kind of my method. I'm going to take that mid-segment, multiply it by 2, it's going to give me the parallel side. So the mid-segment on number 10 is 54. So 2 times 54 equals 3n. I multiply 2 times 54 and I get 108. That equals 3n. Then I divide by 3 and I get, let's see here, 36. Now I did that kind of fast because you can go back and replay this, but those are my steps. Multiply and then divide. Same thing here. The mid-segment is n minus 9. The parallel side is 35. So I'm going to take the mid-segment times 2. So 2 times n minus 9. That equals the longer parallel side, 35. Let's distribute. 2 times n is 2n. 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. Bring down equals 35. Get rid of the loner on the left side. Plus 18. Plus 18. 2n equals 53. And this time we're going to get a fraction because we got to divide by 2 or a decimal, however you want to think about it. N equals half of 53, which is 26.5. Alright, so number 12, same idea. The mid-segment is 4n plus 5. The parallel side is 74. So that mid-segment times 2 equals the parallel side. Distribute. 8n plus 10 equals 74. Get rid of that loner. 8n equals 64. Divide by 8 and we get 8. N equals 8. Alright, so that was kind of fast, but you get the idea. The mid-segment times 2 equals the parallel side. Let's move on to the second page. Same idea here. So mid-segment times 2 equals parallel side. 2 times 9.5 equals 2n minus 23. I get 19 equals 2n minus 23. I get rid of my loner on the right side because that's where my n is. I get 42 equals 2n. Divide by 2. And I get n equals 21. Same thing here. Mid-segment times 2 equals parallel side. So 2 times n plus 8 equals 6n. Distribute. 2n plus 16 equals 6n. When I have n on both sides, I get rid of the smaller n minus 2n. So I get 16 equals 4n. Divide by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Last but not least, mid-segment times 2 equals the parallel side. So 2 times 5n equals 8n plus 10. 2 times 5n is 10n equals 8n plus 10. N is on both sides, just like number 14. Get rid of the smaller n. Minus 8n, minus 8n, 2n equals 10, divided by 2, that's 2, and I get n equals 5. Again, fairly quickly did those because it's the same method every time. Multiply the mid-segment times 2 equals the parallel side, and go from there. Median and centroid. So, this one's fun. We got all those little fractions we got to remember. VW equals. So, for VW. Alright, so for VW, it says Vx is 204. So I know from here to here is 204. And I'm trying to find VW. Now VW is the larger part. And the larger part we learned is 2/3. So to find VW, I'm going to take the whole thing, 204, times 2/3. If I put that in my calculator, I'm going to get 136. Now Wx, so we know this, 136. To figure out Wx, there's two ways to do it. We know the big part is twice as big as the small part, so we could just divide 136 we could just divide 136 by 2, or again, we know Wx is the small part, so we could do 204 times the small part, which is 1/3. Either way, we should get 68 for 1/3. 68 is half of 136, or 68 is 1/3 of 204. Either way. Now for Ry, we know Rw is 104. We know the big part is 104. I'm looking for Ry, the whole thing. Well, I can't find the whole thing unless I know the small part. So remember, to get from the big part to the small part, we're going to do 104 divided by 2, and that's going to give me 52 for the small part. Okay, so I write that right here actually. For Wy, gives me 52. So now that I know I got 104 and 52, I can take those and add them up, and I'll get 156. Alright, so down here at the bottom, we're going to use more of the same stuff. PA equals 2.9. Now, if I know PA, let's try to find PJ from here to here. Remember, small part to big part, I just got to double it. So 2.9 times 2 equals 5.8. And then AJ, or JA, all the way across, I add those together, and I get 8.7. So that was 2.9 plus 5.8. Now, I did those first just because I read it first here. Okay? Now, HC is 10.8 all the way across. So remember, to get the other parts, you multiply them by the fractions. PC is the small part, so that's 1/3. So 10.8 times 1/3. And HP is going to be 10.8. Since it's the big part, it's going to be times 2/3. Throw that in the calculator. So I got 10.8 times 1/3, and that gives me 3.6. And then 10.8 times 2/3 is 7.2. Okay, now that's the first page, front and back, of your assignment. And then on the next video, we're going to do designing it. Actually, we can do it real quick. If I find these midpoints, midpoint, 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 and I connect them to each vertex, these are called medians, and these medians all cross at 4, 2, and that's how I find where it's supposed to be the centroid, because that's where it's going to balance. Okay, so balance means centroid, and centroid is with 3 medians, and you do it midpoint to vertex, just like that.